All right, well, today we're going to introduce the basic search. And so in order to do that, I'm going to open up the English Standard Bible to just briefly show how to do a word search in English, and then I'm going to show Hebrew and Greek. So I'm going to do all three because I know students and users of Logos are coming at it from a variety of perspectives. So let's go ahead and look at the ESV here, and let's say we're reading along and we want to do a word search on heavens. There's a variety of ways you can do this. Now, if you double click on the word, it will open up the word in your prioritized lexicon. So mine's halot, which does not come standard with Logos. You have to buy that separate. So that's my favorite Hebrew lexicon. And so that's where the word which is translated heavens opens up, and then it gives me the readout for that. So you could just double click left on that word and you could have it brought up, whatever the Hebrew word in this case, since it's the Old Testament, would open up in the lexicon, which there are a variety of lexicons that come standard with Logos, and all of those give good information. Now there are other options too, and to access those you can right click. And notice there's a wide variety of options here, and some of these I'm not even sure what they do. Some of these are dealing with some of the databases that are new to Logos 8 in discussing the use in storylines and things that Logos has put together. But for our purposes, we just want to talk about searching. And so one of the easiest things to do is to, on the top right here, you have Bible Word Study. And so if you go ahead and click that, it opens up a window like this. Now yours, all of these might be open, but I have all mine closed just because it takes less time to load that way. And if you examine this, lemma basically means this is how the word is used, and then there are a variety of lexicons that I own that give the various translations. You could do something like that. Here it tells me that this word is used 418 times. Well, something that you can do though is you can go down here to this idea of textual search, and you can look at this. Now I own the Sectarian Dead Sea Scrolls, so you're probably not going to have those, but you can also run the search there. But notice here it says that you have 421 results in 395 verses. So these are all the occurrences of this word, and if you click this, it brings them all up here. So notice it says that you have the 421 results in 395 verses here. And what you can do is I have the Hebrew set up on the left, and the right I have an English Bible, in this case the Christian Standard Bible. What you can do is you can load a couple. You just have to, let's say I don't want the Christian Standard Bible, let's say I want the King James Version. I can write that in there, go ahead and push enter, and load up the King James. Now I have the King James paralleling. Let's say I want a couple different ones. I can just separate them by commas, and I can do the ESV Christian Standard Bible. So now I have a couple different Bible versions paralleling the Hebrew text, and notice they are all highlighted at the appropriate spots to indicate which word they stand in. So you can scroll through literally all the uses of the word for heavens, shamayim in the Hebrew, and see how it's translated in these versions throughout. And notice it's exhaustive. So you scroll through all these, you get through Deuteronomy, you go through Judges, etc. You have all the uses here. Now, depending on how you have yours set up, I have mine to show a lot of them, but you may get to the bottom and have to notice I've gotten through all of them here, but there may be more pages here. You may have to go to page 2, 3, 4, but I have mine to set up to display all of them. But depending on how you have yours set up, you may have to go to page 2, 3 to access some of the other searches. So that's just a very basic way to see how a word is used in English in other places. You just right click, you go to Bible Word Study, and then you go to the textual search and open that up, and you can see how that word is used elsewhere in other uses. Now the word for heavens is used quite a bit. It's used 421 times, but some other significant words might not be used as much, and so it could be helpful to run searches on that. All right, I'm going to head and close everything now, and I'm going to open up the Lexham Hebrew Bible, and we're going to run a search from the Hebrew perspective of things. And it's always more helpful to run things in the original languages because you're working with some specifics here. And as far as generic searching, let's say we were in verse 10 here, and we have God called the dry land earth, and then you have this word which doesn't occur too often. How do we translate this where maybe you don't recognize it from your Hebrew grammar? Well, again, if you right click, left clicking would bring it up in your favorite lexicon. Double clicking with the left would bring it up. If you just single click, it just would do nothing. But you can also drag and select if you want. But right clicking is what we're interested in. And again, you can do the same thing. You could go to your Bible word study and notice there's two ideas you want to be familiar with. Lemma is the actual word itself. So if you go back here, you have, and also I should say, you notice how it's highlighted in red? In order to toggle that on or off, you want to go to Visual Filters, and under Visual Filters, which is this 3 dot here, you want to click Emphasize Active Lemmas. And what that means is that whenever you do a search or whenever you're looking up a word in a lexicon, it will highlight to show you where you are. You can always take that off and it will be removed. But I think it's helpful to have that on so that when you're looking through these things, you can see that. So the lemma is the actual word as it appears. The root is all the words that are related to that word. So for example here, mikveh is the noun, the nominal form, which is related to kavah, the verb meaning to assemble or to collect. And so if you were going to run a search, if we go back here and we select this word, for example, we right click and we wanted to run a search. Over on the left side here, notice you have mikveh here and kavah here. The little check mark indicates the root of the word in its entirety, whether it's used in a nominal form or a verbal form. So you can run that search, or you can select this. So if I left click here, notice the options on the right change. If I left click on this side, the options change again. So right now, under this sequence, I could click search and it would bring up the search text box, and notice it has searched for every occurrence of mikveh in the Hebrew Bible. There are 3 occurrences. And so this is the nominal form, the noun form of mikveh, only 3 occurrences. And remember, since I looked in the English, I adjusted this, so I'm going to set it back to only the Christian Standard Bible to parallel. By the way, you could also, if you're interested, you could do the Septuagint and the Christian Standard Bible. So now you have the Septuagint paralleling, and that can be helpful. Of course, you can also do the Latin if you have that available. So let's say I want to expand the search, though, and I don't want to just search for the noun, but I want to include everything, even the verbs that relate to this. So I select the check mark, and then I go over to search, and I click go ahead with that, and now I get 6 results because I get the verbs and the nouns that are related to this word. So now I have 6. Notice that in Genesis 1:9 you have the verbal form here where the waters were collected in a nifal form, and then you have the nominal form into a collection or into something that is gathered together. And then in Exodus you have the nominal form, and then in Jeremiah 3:17 you have the verbal form. So it can be kind of helpful in running a search this way to expand it to look at every occurrence in Hebrew of the verbs and nouns that are related to this root of the word, or specifically the nominal form, or you could, vice versa, do it specifically the verbal form if you wanted to run those searches. So that can be very helpful. Now let's go to the Greek side of things. I'm going to close everything. And we're going to bring up the NA28 and run a similar search. And this is a good verse to do it on because thesaurizo, is not used too often in the New Testament, if I remember correctly. And so notice here, this is helpful because it gives us the verbal form and thesauros, the nominal form as well. And so this is an example of where utilizing the active lemos can come in handy. So let's say we, again, do our right click. Remember, we have the same perspective here. We can either look at the verbal form, thesaurizo, or we can look up the whole root, thesauros, which I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to select that and then run our search. And notice we have 26 results in 23 verses. Obviously, nothing's going to show up in the Septuagint because this is the New Testament that we're dealing with. So we look through this. We have a nominal form here. We have verbal and nominal, and this is actually our passage. And because we have active lemmas selected, now what shows up in our search is highlighted. So if we were just scrolling and scanning, we would quickly see that these words are a part of our search. And so that can be very helpful when you're trying to discern where a word is used, how a word is used, etc. So I think that's a helpful introduction to the basics of searching and the difference between the lemma, actually searching for a specific word, whether it's the noun or the verb, and the root of the word, viewing it in its entirety, and then also being able to add English translations and other resources in parallels in the search bar as it's brought up. I think those things can be helpful in searching and getting to know how words are used in Scripture. Next video, we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics and how you can run some more advanced searches.